I had been alone in the house for 3 days. My husband was traveling for work, a conference on the East Coast that he did twice a year. I had been alone in that house many times. I was not someone who found being alone at night uncomfortable. The house was a 3-bedroom colonial in a Kansas City suburb we had lived in for 6 years. I knew every sound it made. The furnace cycling, the refrigerator hum, the specific creak of the 3rd stair from the top that I had been meaning to fix for 2 years. I knew this house. On the 3rd night, a Wednesday, I was in the living room watching something on my laptop around 11. The dogs were with me. I had 2, a golden retriever named Biscuit and a rescue mutt named Franklin, who was part shepherd and part unknown, large and observant, the kind of dog who noticed things. Franklin was on the couch beside me. At 11:15 he got up. Not dramatically. He got up from the couch and walked to the back of the house. To the kitchen. To the back door. He stood at the back door, and he was still. Not barking. Not growling. Still. The specific stillness of a dog who has committed his full attention to something. I muted the laptop. I watched him. He did not move. I got up and walked toward the kitchen. As I got closer, I could see what he was doing, looking at the back door with the specific intensity of an animal that has detected something at close range. The back door had a small window in the upper panel. Through it, from inside the dark kitchen, you could see into the backyard. Or from outside, someone standing there could look in. I did not go to the window. I stopped at the kitchen entrance and called Franklin to me. He came. I went back to the living room. I picked up my phone and texted my neighbor across the street, a woman who had a key to my house and whom I had an established check-in system with whenever my husband traveled. I said Franklin was acting strange at the back door and that it was probably nothing, but wanted to give her a heads up. She called me immediately. She said not to go to the back door and to call 911, and that she was watching the front of the house from her window. I said it was probably just an animal. She said maybe, but that my dog did not act that way for raccoons, and that calling 911 was a 5-minute inconvenience if it turned out to be nothing. I called 911. I gave the address, described what Franklin was doing, and said I had not gone to the back door. Officers arrived in 6 minutes. They checked the backyard. At the back fence, the section that bordered the alley, the gate was open. I had locked it 2 days earlier. I was certain. And in the soft soil of the garden bed running along the back of the house, beneath the kitchen window, there were boot prints. Fresh. Someone had come through the back gate and stood at the kitchen window and looked in. At the dark kitchen, at the lit living room beyond it, at me. They were gone before the officers arrived. The officer who took my statement said the dog was the alarm. Not a barking alarm, something quieter and more specific. He said I had read the dog correctly, moved away from the door, and called. That sequence was exactly what happened, and exactly why I was standing there talking to him. He told me to put a lock on that gate that could not be lifted from the outside. A padlock or a secondary latch. A gate that could be opened from the alley was an entrance to my property that I had effectively given to the alley. I put a padlock on the gate the following morning, and I told my husband when he called that night. Not to frighten him, but because he deserved to know. Because being alone at night means the people who are not there still need to know. Tell someone. Every time. My apartment was on the ground floor. I had taken it because it was the only unit in my budget available when I needed to move. I knew the ground floor had vulnerabilities, and I had addressed them. A security bar on the sliding door and window locks on every window. Every window except the bedroom. The bedroom window faced the building's utility area, the garbage enclosure, and the maintenance access path. Not a public walkway, a functional section of the building's exterior that nobody had reason to be near at night. I had left that window without an additional lock because it faced nobody, and because Portland summers are warm and I needed the air. On a July night, I was in bed with the window open. The window had a screen. The curtain was drawn thin, the kind that moves in a breeze. At 1 a.m, I woke up. I lay still and listened. The building's ambient sounds, a car on the street, air moving through the window. And then the curtain moved. Not the way a curtain moves in a breeze. The way a curtain moves when something has touched it from the outside. A deliberate contact, a single disturbance of the fabric. I did not sit up. A screen is not a security feature. A screen keeps insects out. A screen does not keep a person out. I picked up my phone from the nightstand slowly, without sitting up, and called 911. I whispered that someone was at my bedroom window from outside, that I was on the ground floor, that the window was open with a screen, and that I was in the bedroom. The dispatcher kept me on the line. I heard movement from outside the window, along the exterior wall, moving away from my window toward the corner of the building. Then nothing. Officers arrived in 5 minutes. They found no one on the property. But on the exterior wall below my bedroom window, there were marks in the ivy that grew against the building. Someone had been against the wall at my window. The screen showed a small disturbance at the lower right corner, where the screen's edge had been slightly displaced. Someone had been testing it. The officer who came inside to take my report looked at the window and the screen and said a screen was not a lock. He said it told whoever was on the other side nothing. This window needed a lock, he said, and not tomorrow. Tonight. I installed it that night at 2 in the morning. I went to the kitchen, found the window locks I had bought for other windows and never installed on this one, and I put it on. At 2 in the morning. Because the officer was right. Tonight, not tomorrow. Whatever you have been meaning to do to your windows, do it tonight. The north side, the utility area, the window facing nobody. Those are the windows someone has already thought about. Install the lock. Tonight. My house was at the end of a county road, 3 miles from the nearest town, 1.5 miles from my nearest neighbor. I had chosen it deliberately. I value space, quiet, and the specific peace of a home genuinely removed from everything loud. I had lived there for 4 years alone and had never had an incident. On a November night at 11:30, someone knocked on my front door. Not the authoritative knock of law enforcement, not the tentative knock of someone uncertain. A firm and even knock. 3 knocks, waiting, then 3 more. At 11:30 at night. At a house at the end of a county road. I did not go to the door. I want to say that clearly because the instinct, the human social instinct, is to respond to a knock. To open the door. To see who is there. I did not open the door. I stood in my hallway and thought about who knocks on a door at 11:30 on a county road at the end of which there is one house. Someone whose car had broken down would have their hazard lights on and would be calling roadside assistance. Someone who knew me would have called first. Someone with a legitimate need would have identified themselves through the door. The person outside had not spoken, had only knocked. I called 911. I described the time, the location, the knocking. The dispatcher asked if there was exterior lighting I could activate from inside. I turned on the porch light. The knocking stopped. From my front window, angled so I could see the porch without being directly in front of the glass, I watched. A figure on the porch stepped back from the light into the edge where the light was weakest. Staying. Not leaving. Not identifying themselves. Staying in the shadow of the light's edge and waiting. I told the dispatcher, and she said units were 12 minutes out and to keep the light on and not open the door and not speak through it. At the 7-minute mark, the figure left the porch. I heard a vehicle that had been idling somewhere off the road, not visible from any window, start and drive away. The sheriff's units arrived 5 minutes after that. They swept the property and found tire impressions on the county road shoulder about 200 feet from my driveway. A vehicle that had been parked and idling. Waiting. The knock had been, the deputy's word, a test. To see if the house was occupied, to see if anyone would respond. A lit house with no answer might be empty. A lit house with a porch light that comes on means someone is home, awake and aware. The light changed the calculation. The deputy said the light was the right move, not because it frightened them away, but because it told them the house was occupied and aware. An occupied, aware house was a different proposition than a dark house with no response. I had changed what the house looked like from the outside without opening the door. Light and awareness without exposure. Light, without opening the door, without speaking through it, without exposing yourself. Just light. And the decision not to open it,